think that was one of my triggers again from a young age, and I attacked him in the classroom in front of him and the teacher quite violently, and they put me in an environment. They didn't kick me out, but they put me in a very awkward position that made me want to leave. And then thankfully, because of my basketball, I literally got opportunities straight away to go to Matthew Bolton College to play for Herman, but the only course that was available was a sports course. I hated the course, but that was the only course that I could do. So with that, I found that I was in a good place in the sense that I was at college as well. I was playing basketball, and then I had dreams of going to America and playing basketball. But I kind of always remember my dad saying to me, is you need a plan B, because it's clear that the sports course is not working. And the basketball thing's not a guarantee anyway, so you need to have something that you know you're going to fall back on and at least can make you some sort of money.
But let me ask you a question, because everybody knows, or for those that don't know you, you are kind of extraordinary person that deals with young people. So when you think of your journey up to that point, what was the tipping point that made you say youth, straightening them out? I mean, what? Because it sounds like your life been kind of chaotic up to that point, directionless, and then suddenly... So can you talk a little bit about what was the point in which that switched, when you suddenly found a purpose?
I would say it was a couple of issues, really. I think one, I'd say I was living kind of like a double life in a very strange way. I've always been intelligent. I've always known myself. I've always known things that people my age didn't know because of their educational background. And I think when I started to hang around with certain individuals, they kind of started to push me down the wrong way. I started to follow them in very silly ways. You know, found myself clubbing. I was never a drinker. I was never really a smoker, but found myself engaging in some of those types of behaviours. And again, I've always felt angry when I was going out. It's funny enough, my family members used to call me Angry C, you know, because I was always known for kicking off. And I think because my parents, and I've always had family members that are into martial arts, I've always been into some sort of sport. So I've always been able to handle myself. Never been a bad man in that sense. But, you know, I've always been nice with my hands and knees. So found myself always fighting, you know, Broad Street, Arcadian, fighting for no reason whatsoever. And I think the tipping point was my injury. English Cup finals, Birmingham versus East Durham finals, sitting on the bench. I wasn't on the court 2 minutes. Ball went up, ball came down. I was running with another individual. I got knocked to the right, and my right knee came out, and I ruptured my anterior cruciate ligament in my right knee. And in summary, took me out of the sport. I had to have a reconstruction on my knee, pins put into my knee. Doctor said that you'll be able to play football, but not at basketball, but not at the level that you was playing previously. And I think at that point was my tipping point, which led up to my mentor. Where's I? You know, I think my dad kind of was in a position where he was talking to me, didn't feel like he could get through to me, but kind of suggested one of his bedrooms that do youth work. Where's I? And that used to be in the library. It used to be called the Information Centre, which was funded by the youth service. And I used to go there every day, and I was lost. You know, I was lost. You know, they used to talk to me all the time about, well, what do you want to do in your future? And because of my head, I wanted to play basketball. So I'm in a depressed particular phase now in my life. I want to play basketball. I can't walk properly. I'm learning to walk again. I'm doing all of these things that's not me. It's totally against what my family brought me up on. And I'm doing this now. And I think he suggested and said to me, you know what, you'd be good at youth work. I was like, nah, youth work's not a thing for me. It's nothing that I wanted to do, you know. And he kind of said, yo, you can make good money in youth work, you know. And I was like, yeah. I was like, nah, but I don't think it's for me. But anyway, there was a few courses that was on, introduction to youth work, working with young people were 2 courses. One was at Newtown Community Centre. The other one was at Summerfield Centre. I did the one at Summerfield Centre. Didn't want to do the one at Newtown Community Centre because I was told growing up that you don't go to Newtown. It's almost like the boogeyman lives there. You know, as kids, you live in a postcode, and people, the elders in the ends always tell you don't move to that particular postcode. And to the point where I'm sure they got taxis and stuff for me to get there because I was that fearful of going to the postcode just to learn. And I remember going to Newtown for the first time and going on my first day onto the course. And I loved it. I realised nobody I had a problem with. All of this was all psychological, and it was a social construct that I had in my head about individuals that live in certain communities. So I did those courses, and then they said, you know, you should think about doing a course in youth work, a degree. And again, I was like, nah, I don't want to do this degree thing. It's not for me. Education's not for me. I didn't come out of school with no GCSEs. But they're like, look, all of the youth workers and the people that were running these 2 courses said that you was brilliant, you was one of the best students, and da-da-da-da-da. I was like, still not sure. But anyway, fortunately enough, they wrote my application form for me, sent off my application form to UCAS, pull it out there. I got 2 responses back. Derby University, De Montfort University, both called me for an interview. I went to Derby, wasn't really feeling it. Went to De Montfort, and had an interview there. And I was just kind of honest with them. I was just real. And as I said, I've always been of this opinion that if I can get past the application stage and you put me in the interview, I'm most likely going to get the job because I can talk my way out of most things. And I just was kind of real with them and just said to them, you know what, like, you know, you can see from my educational background that, you know, I don't have qualifications as such to be able to do all of those different things. And I think, you know, I think they kind of felt what I was saying. I said to them, you know, I'll be able to give the course something. I'll be able to give, you know, benefits to the students, and they let me onto the course.
Well, what I want to do, because we're tight on time here, what I want to talk about, because you ended up getting a degree, you ended up establishing a massive reputation in terms of youth work. And then suddenly, bam, masters, lecturing, suddenly the journey's changed. The journey changes again. What was the incentive behind shifting a gear again and moving it forward? Because there's a constant progression. So what happened
I'd have
there?
to go back to my degree, because I would say even my first 2 years of being in my degree, I had still that very immature mentality, living that double life. Monday to Friday, I'm at university, nice, go happy, involved in my studies. But on the weekends, I'm rolling with individuals that were negative and total opposite to what I'm trying to achieve. And it was in my second year where I met this man, Dr. Carlton Housen now. And he was profound, he was articulate. And it was weird because I never understood what used to come out of his mouth. He used to do lectures, and for an hour and a half, I'd be looking at this man talking, and I don't get what he's saying. But I always used to tell myself, I'm going to get you by the time I finish with you, I'm going to understand what you're saying. And I found myself being in Carlton's office on my lunch breaks and just trying to understand this individual's mind. And one day he had a very interesting conversation with me, and he, in summary, it was just kind of like, you're kind of like a hypocrite. And I didn't really like the conversation, but it was real, because he was saying that, you know, what are you trying to represent, you know, as a black man in this society? You know, on one hand that, you know, you're trying to develop and do better for the youth, but then on the other hand that you're involved in this foolishness. And I think along with that and an incident where an individual tried to take my life, that for me was the turning point. And I think it was at that point where I said, you know what, I wanted to change. So then leaving university, my intention was to go into the community and work in the community. So I started working at Oakland Young People Centre in Handsworth. And I was a senior youth worker / manager working in that centre, engaging with young people and some of the so-called deprived, so-called hard to reach young people from our community. And then it was then I still kind of felt that I wasn't getting enough. And I think my mind at that particular point, I wanted to learn. And it was only until there was an event where an individual was coming from America. If you might remember Tupac, he had a group called the Outlaws, and an individual in Napoleon that was a part of the Outlaws came to the UK and done a talk. He had embraced Islam as a faith, and he was just talking to the youths about violence and madness. And I wanted to go and bring some young people. And the individual that was doing the event was a guy named Raymond Douglas. And I remember phoning this number and saying to them that I got a bunch of kids that want to come, but I'm going to be real. I need to know what type of other young people are in the building, because I and you possibly won't be able to control what's going to take place at the building. I don't know how I said it to him, but he said, you know what, let me call you back. And he called me back in half an hour, said it was all good. We went up there in a couple of taxis. Long people liked it. And I think that's when I started to connect with Ray. And then, funny enough, 2 months after, the same Raymond Douglas was doing a course called Gangology. And I remember him calling me. I remember looking at the price thinking, yo, that's expensive, man. Youth service wasn't feeling it. They weren't trying to fund me to go on the program. But anyway, cut a long story short, he called me and said, you know what, I can give you the first day for free between us. Sorry, rates out there now. Yeah, so jumped on the course, first day, loved it. On the night, he texted me again, said, you know what, you might as well just do the rest of the course, man. So I said, you know what, I respect that. And then I remember on the third day, they did not tell me that an individual, well, on the thing I seen Dr. Martin Glynn, and I remember on the third day we had to do this presentation, and this presentation was about how would we engage with young people about raising the awareness of joint enterprise. And I remember on the night before the presentation, I think I called a couple of the man them from prison. I was talking to people. I'm like, yeah, man, I got this boxed. Went in on the Friday morning, and I remember the class started at 9, but I remember getting there about 20 past 8. And I remember this man with white hair and a goatee talking. And I was kind of like, who's this brother? And am I late? And I realized he was just talking early, and I realized it was Martin. And I remember for the first 3 hours, I remember thinking everything that I knew, understood about gangs and violence, I didn't know. And I think I remember that it was quite weird because all of the professionals in the building at break time didn't want to talk to you. And I remember I said to Martin, to you, that I know you don't know me, but I want to be your student. And I remember weeks and months following that, you know, I'd come to your house in the morning. It was funny that we literally lived around the corner from each other, and I'd come to your house before we'd go to work. I would go to work with my pen and notepad and trying to understand. So I would say that when you think about it in a context, when you think of my dad, Wesai, Trevor, Terry, Herman, Carlton, Martin, Ray, it's been a continuation of men, consistent men that have been in my life, that have had the opportunity to give me their knowledge and expertise, and I've kind of used it, repackaged it, and then I've become that individual now that other youths can look at and say, yeah, man, I can bust through.
Well, you know, Craig, we could go on for a long time, and hopefully we're going to have a part 2. I want to say a big thanks for coming and talking and reasoning. And I just want to say to the listeners, we started the show by talking about the journey. If you listen to what Craig has said, he's talked about men, he's talked about struggle, fighting with yourself, all the things that enable you to grow and become resilient. So I would like to thank Craig, and I just want people to remember about what the Roadman's Guide is about. It's about the community, for the community, and I want you to remember the 6 R's. Read, write, research, recharge, and rest. And finally, remember. So until next time, stay safe, walk good, and bring light into the darkness. This is Doc Martin, the Roadman's Guide. Peace.